Hi and welcome to this week's video. My name's Hayley Trower and I'm a holistic sobriety and wellness coach helping men and women to quit drinking or take a break from drinking so that they can create success in health and career. A question I used to ask myself over and over again was, why can't I drink like a normal drinker? And I would obsess over this. I would compare myself to others. It would make me feel shame. It would make me feel inadequate about myself, and it would just bring me further and further down into a depression. But actually, the words normal drinker is an oxymoron. So maybe you might define a normal drinker as someone who can just have a couple of drinks and not crave more, or someone who doesn't suffer as a result of their drinking. But alcohol is a psychoactive substance, so it means you aren't actually normal when you're drinking. It affects the brain, it affects the body, it impairs your thinking, your memory, your concentration. It affects the grey and white matter in the brain, it slows down your movements. So it actually affects everyone in detrimental ways, actually. It might be more helpful, instead of asking yourself, why can't I drink like a normal drinker, to instead ask yourself, why is drinking a problem for me? Because it takes the power out of other people and it gives you personal responsibility over your own actions. In order to answer that question, why has drinking become a problem for me, it helps to know why alcohol addiction emerges in the first place. What are the circumstances that create problem drinking? And there are three key elements to the story, and that is there are psychological influences, physiological influences, and social influences. So, number one, the environment is a huge influence on whether or not we become problematic drinkers. So this could be your external environment, such as the relationships, including relationships early on in childhood, home environment, again, really important early on in childhood. This has a really powerful influence. Work environment, stresses, but also internal, the internal environment, such as your own thinking, your mindset, your approach and attitude to life, but also the sorts of food that you eat and how much water you drink. The second influential factor when it comes to problem drinking is our genetics. Now, humans have 35,000 genes. This might sound like a lot, but actually it's not a lot, because it's the same number of genes that are found in mice. And it's the same number of genes that's found in a grain of rice. So genetics do not tell the whole story. So if you're blaming your drinking problems on your genes, then really it's another way of saying, my drinking problem is beyond my control. I cannot control what I was born with. That's old thinking. This is not a current way of thinking, and this is not helpful. So the power is in your hands. You have the choices to change the course of your life. Genetics may load the gun, but it's the environment that pulls the trigger. The third influential factor is your society or your culture. And particularly in Western culture, we're conditioned to live in an individualistic society. So it means we're often striving to reach personal goals, and often this is at the risk of abandoning the social and emotional welfare of ourselves and of others. And this can create a problematic way of looking at things like addiction, because addiction is essentially a coping mechanism for avoiding pain, fear, discomfort or hurt. And often it's not viewed this way in society, sadly. So actually, contrary to some opinions, addiction or problematic drinking is not a disease, it's not a brain disorder. It's just a result of a certain set of circumstances that have been learned over time and that can be unlearned. When we're children, when we're very young, early in our life, and we are exposed to levels of stress or trauma, we set up belief systems and behaviour patterns in order to cope with those stresses and with those traumas. And what happens is they stay with us for a very long time, even when those belief systems and behaviour patterns are no longer relevant in our adult lives. And so they stay with us until we change them. So those belief systems can actually become detrimental to us. The problem is trying to change them because they're so deeply embedded in our subconscious. They drive all of our thinking and all of our behaviour and all of our interactions, and so it is incredibly hard to change them. And that's why sometimes we need to seek help from a professional, from a counsellor, from a psychologist, from a coach, or even from a community group, because it just helps us to shift those deeply embedded behaviour patterns. And then once we've shifted those behaviour patterns, then we can start to pause and to change our habits around drinking. And so the reason why drinking is a problem for you is probably because those behaviours and those patterns and those drivers are causing you to drink for some reason. And so you need to unravel what those habits and patterns and drivers are in order to change. So when you ask yourself, why can't I be a normal drinker? Perhaps shift that question to, why is drinking a problem for me? Because then that's more about taking personal responsibility instead of the shame that's involved in comparing yourself to others. And then once you've figured out why drinking is a problem for you, then you will start to be able to unravel what that problem is, and you will then be able to find sustainable solutions to that problem. Maybe one day you will be able to have a drink without craving another. But I think true freedom is being able to step into a mindset where you genuinely do not want to drink. You see no reason why drinking can enhance your life. To me, that's true liberation. And then you may find that you're never going to ask yourself that question anyway. Why can't I drink like a normal drinker? Because you have no need to ask yourself that question, because drinking you can't see how drinking could ever play a role in your life. So I hope you found this video useful. If you had any aha moments, I'd love to know your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments.